for me, I had the experience of.
It just sounds like you're justifying anti-Semitism, which making me feel.
Are you crazy right now?
This is one of the most revealing interviews I have seen with a politician this year, and it was conducted by a comedian, Adam Friedland, who hosts the Adam Friedland Show, a former host of the Come Town podcast. Somebody who hosted a show called the Come Town podcast did a better job at interviewing a politician than the vast majority of the press. And the biggest reason for that is because Adam Friedland showcases humanity, empathy, and actual care for human rights. While Ritchie Torres, you're going to witness here just how insane the reaction is. So I got a couple of clips from this interview. I will link to the full thing below the video. The real tension begins around the 40-minute mark, but I think it's worth watching the whole thing to get an understanding of the beginning of the discussion and where Ritchie Torres comes from, because he's somebody who has faced adversity growing up, yet clearly has been unable to develop the ability to empathize. So it's worth noting before I get to the first clip here that this is a story that came out this week from Sludge. Torres invested in weapons makers as he backed billions in arms for Israel. Reminder, this is a Democratic congressman in New York that is incredibly conservative. So, just as an aside here, it seems ripe for a primary challenge, but Dropsite has the summary here, and worth noting, Sludge and Dropsite both do fantastic reporting, fantastic journalism. Check out both and make sure you follow them both. They write here, while urging Biden to rush bombs for Israel's genocide and voting for a $17 billion arms package to the apartheid state, Ritchie Torres also secretly bought stock in weapons giants that were supporting Israel, and the trades were also filed nearly a year late. All the while, Torres loudly opposed a ceasefire, joined Republicans to override Biden's brief pause on 2,000-pound bombs, and voted to sanction the ICC after it issued arrest warrants for Israeli leaders. Just absolutely insane moves. And not surprising, he has received quite a bit of money from AIPAC to the tune of over $1.5 million. Let me get to the first clip here where this is a few minutes into their conversation around Israel and Gaza, and just the response that Torres comes back with here is just insane.
I think hatred of Jewish people has exploded in this country. And I think it's because it's of our support of what looks to be an absolute brutality. And I think that...
You think that's a justification for anti-Semitism?
Here's the thing.
You think Israeli government policy is a justification for anti-Semitism? My view is there's no justification for anti-Semitism.
I think that...
There's zero justification for anti-Semitism.
Okay, you're deflecting again.
I'm not deflecting. That's my position.
What does it look like to have a flag with a Jewish star, and I'm Jewish, and for kids to be starving right now? Why is my government... I don't want to do this fight. Let's not do like a yelling at each other thing. I really just... For me, I had the experience of...
It just sounds like you're justifying anti-Semitism, which making me feel...
Are you crazy right now?
Okay. I don't know whether to laugh or cry at the reaction from Ritchie Torres. Adam Friedland has lived in Israel. He is Jewish. The idea that he is justifying anti-Semitism by pointing out the reality of what is happening is insane. Discussing the result of an action is not a justification for the action. It's simply a discussion of cause and effect. I think we know it's the Israeli government, not Jewish people, that are the ones committing these actions. But when the average person is being told that any criticism of the Israeli government is inherently somehow anti-Semitic, do you think that helps or hurts the fight against anti-Semitism? So this whole, the complete disconnect that Ritchie Torres displays from reality. Look, I know we shouldn't be surprised, considering if you have any awareness at all of Ritchie Torres. I discussed his votes earlier. The things he advocates for, it should not be surprising. But just seeing it like this, seeing this interview where you have one person that is a human who shows empathy, who is a real, genuine individual in Adam Friedland, and another who is at best a robot, it is just such a stark contrast. Let me get to, so I'm actually going to show two more clips, because I split this one into two. So here is a continuation of that discussion.
If you have disagreements with the Israeli government, you should voice your criticism of the Israeli government. But there is no justification for intimidation or harassment against American Jews.
I'm telling you as a Jew right now that we are receiving a lot more hate because of what the people with a flag that has a Jewish star on are doing to other people right now.
That might
and
be
I'm telling you, as a Jewish person, how painful it is for us to say, and it hurts my stomach to say this. So you're going to say, I disagree, that this is a genocide. And that hurts to say that a Jew could do that. It hurts because we grew up with learning about what hatred is. We grew up learning about this.
All right, so before I get to the last clip, which I think really just completely exposes Ritchie Torres in an insane moment, I want to discuss why Adam Friedland here is so effective in this interview. So I've worked in broadcast news, both locally and nationally. I used to host a radio show. A lot of people in these traditional media spaces are taught to keep their feelings out of their reporting, which under certain circumstances I think could make sense, but that also leads to a situation where you are removing empathy from your reporting. So you're left with reports that are based on what some institution says, many of which could be corrupt. So, these news reports, media discussions are often based around, the police said this, the Israeli government said this, the White House said this. Okay, but what is behind that? Why are they saying that? What is influencing that decision to say that? And what is the truth? And are we centering human rights in this reporting? Or are we just discussing, this is what they said, this is what they said? Which, again, strips out the empathy, strips out the humanity from reports. People like Adam Friedland, Jon Stewart, great example as well. They're able to re-inject humanity into discussions around politics and news, which is why they are so effective, because they recenter what is important. Let me get to the last clip here, which again, this is just wild.
I mean, Hamas murdered thousands of people, so there's no...
So what does that mean?
That Hamas is a terrorist organization for murdering innocent children and civilians.
How many civilians have been killed in this war?
The war is a tragedy, but
90% of them have been.
But
90% of them have been civilians. They've killed journalists. They've killed journalists.
People have been killed in a war. It's been a tragedy.
They've killed people waiting for aid.
But you're suggesting that it is the policy of the Israeli government to murder civilians, and that is a notion that I reject.
You gotta listen, man. You gotta be like a human being about this.
People who are dying in the war, which to me is a tragedy, because war is a tragedy.
Do you feel in your heart that this is what you're saying is right?
If you remove Hamas...
You don't actually think that.
I told you what I believe. Don't tell me what I believe. I've told you what I believe.
Why would you believe that?
Because there are people who see the world differently. I know it's a shock to you, but there are people who see the world differently from you.
The absolute tonal change from when Ritchie Torres is discussing the Israeli citizens killed on October 7th to the tens of thousands, and estimates putting it up around 300,000 civilian deaths in Gaza. The tonal change between those two discussions is incredible. And it's all under the guise of, it's a war. It's a war, so it's okay. Gaza doesn't have a military. What kind of war is this? A one-sided war. It's a genocide. How many civilian deaths have there been in Israel since October 7th? 0. So how is that a war? We are talking about a one side doing the killing. And he simply does not care. These are the marks of a sociopath. He's doing what he thinks is necessary for his own career, even though I don't think it's going to help his career. But he thinks he's doing what's necessary for his career, and he's going to justify that however he can in these sorts of interviews. And when he tries to, he comes off looking like the absolute clown that he is. Just disgusting. So, Ashley Ree shared this question on Twitter that I think is worth thinking about. I mostly want to know why Ritchie agreed to be interviewed. Great question, because he does not come out of this interview looking good, obviously. I tend to think, just much like the Alyssa Slotkin interview when she went on Breaking Points and Crystal Ball had a similar discussion where she was bringing up empathy and, human rights. And Alyssa Slotkin just did not seem to care. I don't think these politicians are aware of what they're getting into. I know they're being told, for good reason, that they need to connect more with social media and go to these online shows and try to connect with a different audience, a younger audience, because they're not reaching different people when they keep going on these traditional news outlets. But at the same time, that only works if you are a politician who actually cares, who is centered in human rights, in workers' rights. If you don't care about the issues, if you don't care about what the actual problems in society and the world are, then these sorts of interviews are not going to help you just because you're there. You have to actually be somebody, a different kind of politician. So I don't think Ritchie Torres knew what he was getting into. I think he saw Adam Friedland. I think he had a recent New Yorker, I think that was the magazine, had a recent cover story of him. So I thought, hey, this is a up and coming, millennial. He's being called the millennial Jon Stewart. Let me go do an interview with him. It'll be good. I don't think he really understood that people in these spaces, be it Adam Friedland, be it Crystal Ball, have a real connection both to reality, the facts, and humanity. And these politicians simply do not know how to deal with that.